In this video, we'll be going over the Initiator role and everything you should know to play it optimally. In Valorant, there is nothing more OP than a good Initiator player. I'm sure we have all been in games where the enemy team has a Sova so good it almost feels unfair. Or maybe a KO that turns your Valorant game into a CSGO match, where only the enemy team gets their abilities. What's going on, guys? It's your host Sergeant Frost here, bringing you guys another ultimate guide to the Initiator role. In this video, we'll be looking at what it takes to carry games without even needing to use your gun. So without further ado, let's get into it, starting with the goals. The ultimate goal of every Initiator player should be to help your team gain information around the map while disrupting enemy positions. Then, using that information or disruption to guide your teammates into making correct plays with an advantage. While Initiators help basically all their enemies with their info, you're always going to want to be looking to combo with your duelist the most. It's common knowledge that Initiators have a hard time capitalizing off their own utility. I mean, if Sova or Skye are droning up a position, say like Hookah on Bind, it's almost impossible for them to take advantage of the information themselves. This is why duelists with their fast-acting utility allows them to punish enemies revealed by that utility. The inherent value of the Initiator class is more or less unmatched by any other role in the game. No matter the elo, map, or situation, information is invaluable, and agents like Sova, Fade, and KO will always have a spot on a team comp. There is never really a game where you hear people complain, "Oh man, I got a Sova on my team this game." Just because no matter how they perform mechanically, their utility will always provide value, at least if they know how to use it. Now, while it's true that Initiator's utility is S tier in terms of team play, knowing how to extract max value out of this seemingly broken utility is what is difficult. In order to extract everything out of your agent pick, you need to understand what your utility is trying to accomplish. The Initiator role can be broken up into two main categories of agents. You have your information-based Initiators, the main two being Fade and Sova, while on the other side of the coin, you have your engage-based Initiators being KO, Breach, and Skye. Information-based characters rely on revealing enemy positioning so their team can have the first move on them, and approach their position intelligently. This is where things like lineups for Sova darts or Fade eyes are amazing because they can accomplish two goals. Number one, you can maximize the amount of area your utility reveals. Number two, having lineups improves your efficiency and versatility no matter what side of the map you're pressuring. On the other hand, characters like Skye and Breach rely less on lineups and more on flashing and stunning common angles that enemies like to play from. You will notice that both sides of the role revolve around enabling their team. So what's the best way to help your team? And what separates good Initiator players from the best? That's the basic idea, but before we get into the how and why, I should mention that the fastest way to improve is through our $8 subscription over on our website ProGuides.com. We offer high-level coaching and even guides taught directly by pros. So if you want to climb the fastest way you can, give it a try. Now let's dive deeper into how to actually take advantage of the insane kits Initiators wield game to game. We've gone on and on about just how good agents like Sova and Fade can be for helping their team. However, it's impossible for them to use their utility when they are dead. Patience is the golden rule for Initiator players at all ranks since their utility is this powerful. You want to be only taking duels that are extremely favorable or low risk. Even getting a 1-for-1 trade for one of your Initiators probably isn't worth it. Cool, it's a 4v4 now. But how are you going to get onto site without your Sova? How are you going to start that retake? Even getting back basic map control becomes infinitely more difficult without your Initiator. Losing your Initiator early could mean the difference between life and death for your team. Not to mention, some of the best abilities in the game like Sova Dart are not one-use round abilities but instead on a timer, meaning the more patient you are, the more chance you will have to use these insane signature abilities. An example of this in action is if you're playing Sova on a map like Ascent. At the start of a defending round, you can use your dart to gain information and be main. If your dart scans nothing, then maybe your jet can move up and take this newfound space. Doing this yourself wouldn't work, but by the time you shoot your dart and walk all the way over, the opponents can already be there again, and unlike your jet, you really need to be with your team if the next step is retaking A. After all, once your team is grouping around Heaven, your dart will be coming back up fresh off its cooldown, so you'll be ready to start up the next engagement. We all know Initiator is all about team play, so how you communicate to your teammates is also extremely crucial. The best players in the world are always communicating to their teammates and explaining their game plan. You're the one with the utility, so you need to be the one to tell your team what your dart, drone, stun, or flash is trying to accomplish. A perfect example could be a Sova dart on Ascent A site. If you have a dart that hits the right side of wall on the site, you should make your team aware of what to look for. In this case, it clears almost the entire site, but there are some weak spots, particularly Generator and Under Heaven. So let your teammates know. Of course, don't drag it on too long, but instead keep this information short and concise. A simple, darting site, careful gen in hell, could be enough to change a round. The agent that requires this information the most on any team is of course the duelist. Duelists have almost the opposite playstyle as an Initiator since they are the first ones in and constantly dueling. The best Initiator players tend to also have the best duelists and are always constantly racking up assists from the enemies they displace. Next time you're in a ranked game and your Jet is going 0-10, maybe think of ways you can help them succeed with your abilities. In reality, there are going to be games where your team doesn't listen and isn't willing to cooperate, but most of the time your teammates are going to love to work with you as long as you're nice to them. And another important aspect is how to read the map and make good decisions with your utility. Just because you scan 3 or 4 players with your dart doesn't necessarily mean the best play to make is to try and fight them all. Many players, especially in lower elo, end the round before it even has a chance to begin. Remember, your most important signature ability is on a timer, so if you need to slow the pace of a game down and rotate, you will still have enough information utility for your next play. Information isn't exclusively for fighting. Learning to avoid danger is one of the keys of not only your role, but of Valorant in general. We all know how solo queue can sometimes be though. Your team may not always be keen on hitting a rotation, so sometimes you might be forced to hit a site, even if you already know it's stacked, just because your Jet is adamant on it. But if everyone's nice and friendly, try to avoid it. Walking into a stacked bomb site isn't always fun. And since we are talking about what it means to be valuable in your role, let's take some time to talk about some of the most common mistakes Initiator players tend to make. I know we have hit on communication a few times so far in the video, but we can't stress it enough to you. Initiators commonly don't talk enough to their team, and it leads to their utility not getting maximum value, or it even might start hurting their team instead. Information could be a dangerous thing when not communicated well. Just to give you an example, say you were to drone an area of the map, like Garage on Haven, and you see an enemy in the window, but you don't get the tag with the drone. If you don't communicate that information, it's going to bait your teammates into thinking it's clear. The second most common mistake Initiators make is messing up the timing on their abilities. If you shoot your dart too early, there's a chance enemies that get scanned relocate before your team has a chance to punish their positioning, or the dart fades before your team is ready to execute onto site, allowing those enemies to move into a previously cleared location. And if the utility comes out too late, then your team will get punished before they even have a chance to see where the enemies are playing from. The best time to use your utility is right before your team is about to enter onto site, preferably after a flash is thrown and smokes are down. The reason for this is because enemies are way less likely to react to your dart when they know they are flashed or smoked off the angle. Finding your playstyle and recognizing timing comes with games and experience on agents. But it's a good habit to be aware of these things, and if you feel like your utility isn't getting a lot done, then that's probably because it indeed is not. You're either doing the wrong things or you're doing the right things on the wrong timings. And a final mistake we see is that most Initiator players don't recognize how powerful their abilities can be when they are combined with other agents. An example is a Sova drone and a Reyna flash or a Fade Seize with a Raze nade. You will often see professional Valorant players comboing their utility to help make them harder to react to. If you throw a Sova drone in combination with the flash helps the drone clear more of an area without instantly being broken. And we all know what Fade and Raze are capable of doing when paired together. Talk to your teammates to help make some of these plays happen in your ranked games. Speaking of ranked games, let's talk about some of the key components that contribute to ranked. Playing Initiator is one of the few roles in ranked that relies less on mechanics and more about consistency with your utility. Learning how to be dynamic and precise is critical when it comes to ranked since every game is different. This is where lineups can be extremely useful. If you are playing an agent like Sova or Fade, using the same dart or eye every round will eventually start getting old and predictable. Either enemies will hide from it or it will be broken before it gets a chance to ping. Using lineups to be more dynamic works wonders in a solo queue environment since communication isn't always the best. So if you have 1 of 4 darts, you can shoot at any given bomb site that provides solid info if you're going to be lethal every round. Another key to climbing is your agent pool. Now, all the Initiators are usually solid picks for any given team composition, but learning what agents feel best from map to map is a game changer for ranked. One of the best examples is Split. This map is currently out of the map pool but will soon be added back. One of the staples of Split is that Sova is infamously bad on this map as opposed to something like a Fade or a Breach. And Breach is looked at as terrible on maps like Breeze or Icebox but is S++ tier on Fracture. If you're looking to climb on this role, it's a good idea to learn each Initiator based on what maps are their strong suits. According to the past VCT champions, here are where these agents are the strongest. Sova is seen mostly on Breeze, Icebox, and Ascent. Fade has the highest pick rates on Haven, Pearl, and Ascent. KO has been king on all maps like Ascent, Breeze, and Pearl since he counters a lot of the meta picks on those maps, while Sky has only really seen play on Bind exclusively. Lastly, when it comes to climbing, many players don't really know the best ways to approach retake scenarios. It can feel like such a nightmare to be playing retake from round to round since there are so many unknowns. The enemy team could be playing from any given position as long as it has the spike visible. You need to understand that Initiators are supposed to be the guide into these dangerous scenarios with their utility. Save important util and tell your team how you can help them with the retake. An example could be, hey guys, I saved the drone, we can use him for information. Or you could say, my stun is coming up in 5 seconds, I can stun Jen and switch when you're ready. You will be surprised how many rounds just this little bit of communication will win you. To finish off the video, let's quickly go over everything we covered. First off, Initiators are the backbone of any Valorant composition. Their information and utility is god tier and you will often see 2 Initiator comps in any given pro meta. However, when you play this role and you die, you lose all the valuable utility and you are unable to help your team, making patience the golden rule of this position. We also went over how much more impactful your information can be when your communication is on point, especially with your duelist class agents that have the most dangerous job on the team. Keeping them safe and helping them frag should be high up on any good initiator's priority list. We also spoke of what it means to risk evaluations with the information you gather. Just because you know where an enemy is located doesn't mean that the best course of action is to run them down. Always try to find the path of least resistance, since that will always help secure more rounds. Finally, we finished up with tips to help keep you climbing on your solo queue journey. This has been your host Sergeant Frost, and I will see you all again in the next one.